Battlefield was once defined by moments no other shooter could replicate. Entire buildings collapsing under tank fire, jets screaming overhead while infantry fought for control below. It wasn't scripted spectacle, it was controlled chaos. Yet today, many players argue that Battlefield no longer feels like Battlefield at all. So, what changed? Did the franchise lose its identity, or did it evolve in order to survive a rapidly changing industry? Today, we're opening the archive. When Battlefield 1942 launched in 2002, it introduced something fundamentally different from other shooters of its time. Instead of small, tightly controlled arenas, Battlefield placed players inside large-scale environments where infantry, tanks, aircraft and naval units all existed within the same match. From the very beginning, Battlefield was built around the concept of combined arms warfare. Success was rarely about individual performance alone. Victory depended on coordination between different holes across an evolving battlefield. As the series continued, this identity became more refined. Battlefield 2 expanded the modern military setting while reinforcing structured class systems and squad play. Battlefield Bad Company introduced advanced environmental destruction, allowing players to reshape the battlefield itself. By the late 2000s, Battlefield had established a clear design philosophy. It wasn't focused on esports precision, it wasn't about fast respawn chaos. Instead, Battlefield simulated the unpredictability of large-scale military conflict while still remaining accessible to a wide audience. For many players, the franchise reached its peak with Battlefield 3 in 2011 and Battlefield 4 in 2013. These entries achieved a balance that proved difficult to maintain. Maps were large but readable. Vehicles were powerful but required coordination. Destruction enhanced strategy rather than replacing it. Battlefield 3 also introduced a cinematic presentation style that increased immersion without sacrificing sandbox gameplay. Meanwhile, Battlefield 4 expanded environmental interaction with large-scale dynamic events. At this point, Battlefield clearly differentiates itself from competitors. While other shooters prioritize speed and reaction time, Battlefield emphasized scale, teamwork and emergent gameplay. Players didn't simply perform actions, they created stories within each match. The distinction gave the franchise a stable identity. However, maintaining that balance required increasingly complex development resources, and the industry itself was beginning to change. By the mid-2010s, multiplayer game design was increasingly influenced by long-term engagement models. Live service structures began replacing traditional release cycles. Player attention metrics became as important as initial sales. Battlefield was not isolated from these pressures. Battlefield 1, released in 2016, was critically successful and commercially strong. Its World War I setting provided a unique historical perspective rarely explored in major shooters. However, the gameplay direction leaned toward accessibility and cinematic immersion. Weapon handling was simplified compared to earlier modern era entries. Class holes remained present, but the overall experience became more curated. Battlefield 5 attempted to refine this approach with expanded movement systems and live content updates, yet the game struggled with messaging, shifting design priorities and inconsistent post-launch support. During this period, Battlefield was still recognizable, but the franchise core identity was beginning to blur. The emphasis was no longer solely on structured sandbox warfare, it was now competing with evolving expectations for continuous engagement. Battlefield 2042 represented the most significant departure from the franchise's traditional structure. Instead of class-locked roles, the game introduced specialist characters with flexible equipment options. This change fundamentally altered team composition. Without clearly defined roles, coordination became less predictable. The design direction reflected broader trends across the multiplayer market. Character-driven systems, seasonal content frameworks, long-term progression models. However, these additions came with trade-offs. Maps were significantly larger than previous entries, but often lacked density. Matches supported more players, yet individual contributions felt less impactful. Moments of emergent teamwork, once a defining feature of Battlefield, became harder to recognize. At launch, technical issues and missing legacy features further affected reception. Over time, updates reintroduced traditional class structures, but by that point, the perception that Battlefield had drifted from its identity was already widespread. the transformation of Battlefield was not the result of a single decision. It emerged from overlapping pressures. Development scale increased dramatically with each generation. Player expectations diversified across genres. Live service models became financially dominant across the industry. Battlefield attempted to adapt to these realities. Expanded customization and flexibility allowed broader accessibility. Seasonal content supported longer engagement cycles. However, adaptation introduced design conflicts. Features that encouraged individual expression sometimes weakened coordinated teamwork. Larger environments increased spectacle but reduced readability. In trying to appeal to multiple audiences simultaneously, the franchise's original focus became less defined. Battlefield did not abandon its identity intentionally, it gradually redistributed its priorities. Did Battlefield lose its identity? This question remains debated. Early entries emphasized structured class roles, coordinated objectives, and controlled large-scale chaos. Later entries emphasized player freedom, flexible loadouts, and persistent progression systems. Battlefield still offers large multiplayer environments, but the experience functions differently. What was once a tightly balanced military sandbox has become a broader platform designed to support multiple playstyles. Some players view this as a necessary evolution. Others see it as a loss of unique design philosophy. Objectively, the franchise shifted its center of gravity, from team-defined structure toward player-driven flexibility. Battlefield did not lose its identity overnight. It drifted gradually across multiple releases, shaped by industry trends, technological demands, and changing player expectations. Recent updates and future development plans suggest a renewed focus on class structure and traditional gameplay principles. Whether that direction will fully restore the franchise's earlier identity remains uncertain. What is clear is that Battlefield's evolution reflects a broader pattern across the industry. Long-running franchises must continuously adapt to survive. Sometimes that adaptation strengthens what made them unique. Sometimes it reshapes them entirely. Battlefield's identity was never erased, but it was redefined, one design decision at a time. This archive remains open. New case files release every Monday, Wednesday and Friday.